Welcome to Lesson 118, Multiplying Decimals. Today we're going to talk about how to multiply decimals by whole numbers, multiply decimals by decimals, and how to solve problems that involve multiplying decimals. Now, what's different when we multiply decimals is that in this case we don't line up the decimals, we line up the last digits or the last numbers. So in this case, the decimals do line up because we're going to line up the 2 and the 6. Those are the last digits, so we line them up. Okay, again, you have this in your notes, so you're going to write what you did here, and then you're going to show that this is step 1. Okay, and you did this. Okay, and then I would draw a line and show step 2. Make sure that you're showing all the different steps. Okay, now that we've done that, our next step is ignore the decimal and multiply. We always ignore the decimal until the end. So we go ahead and we multiply. 2 times 6 is 12. Down the 2, carry the 1. Okay, 0 times 6 is 0. 0 times 0 is 0. Don't forget to put this placeholder in here. So just in case we forgot how to multiply, I'm just going to do a quick refresher for you. 6 times 2 is 12, so we put the 2 up here. We carry the 1. 0 times 6 is 0, plus 1 is 1. We put the 0 here as a placeholder because we're done with the digits over here. Then we do 2 times 0 is 0. 0 times 0 is 0. We add all those together. Okay, so we just multiply it as we normally would. Right, so this step I should see written down over here like this. So it should be a new, okay, again, ignore the decimals. Okay, 0, 0, 0, 1, 2, and then step 3. Okay, step 3, place your decimal. The way that we place our decimal is we count how many numbers we have after the decimal. Okay, that's how far to the left you place your decimal. So what that means is I have one number after the first decimal and I have one number after the second decimal. So that means I need to move my decimal 2 places to the left. So it always starts at the far right and then moves to the left that many places. So I have 1 in the first one and 1 in the second one. Now that doesn't mean I only move it once. I move it once for each number on top and 1 for each number on bottom. So I move it once for the 2 and once for the 6, and we get 0 and 12 hundredths. Now, if you're looking at this and thinking, but how did my number get smaller? Which you are correct, your number actually did get smaller because 12 hundredths is smaller than 6 tenths and 2 tenths. The reason that it works out this way is because what you're doing is you're taking 2 tenths, okay? If we cover in 2 tenths, that's 2 sets of 10, okay? Times 6 tenths, so we have to do that. Now, it's the areas that are shaded in the same color that are your answer. Okay, so the areas that are shaded in with both colors, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 of those, meaning our answer is 12 hundredths, because 12 out of the 100 are shaded in. Okay, you can do this for most any problem, except for you have to make sure, in this case it worked because both of these ended in the tenths. So if we were to add more digits behind this, you would have to have a bigger grid. Okay, if it went to the thousandths, you would have to have a grid that at least went or had 1,000 pieces to it. Okay, so now the next thing you're going to do, we have another set of steps. Okay, so again, same exact thing as you did last time. You write the steps over here, show each individual step over here. Line up the last numbers or the last digits. So again, I'm going to line up the 2 and the 6. Even though this decimal is here, it doesn't matter because step number 2 is always to ignore the decimal and multiply. So you'll notice your steps are always the same. It's just a matter of remembering we do not have to line up the decimal. And the reason I have you not line up the decimal is because otherwise you end up with a lot of zeros and it makes it a lot more difficult to multiply. Okay, so when we ignore the decimal and multiply, we get 2 times 6 being 12. Again, carry the 1. 1 times 6 is 6, plus 1 is 7. Okay, we're done with the 2 and the 6, so I'm sorry, we're done with the 6, so we add a 0 as a placeholder. 2 times 1 is 2. 1 times 1 is 1. Okay, so when we take all that and add it together, we get 192. But that third step is to place our decimal. Now in this case, the only number that I have after the decimal is the 6. And since the 6 is the only number that I have after the decimal, I only move my decimal one place to the left. So in this case, my answer is 19 and 2/10. All right, so I'm going to try the first one with you, and then you are going to try numbers 2 and 3 on your own. So step 1, line up our last digits. So I'm going to line up the 5 and the 1. Okay, now I'm going to multiply. I'm going to ignore this decimal until the end. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 5 is 5. Since I'm done with the 5, I have to add a 0 as a placeholder. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 1 is 1. Now I have to add all these together. Okay, since I have this one number after the decimal, my decimal is right here, I move my decimal one place to the left and get 16 and 5/10 as my answer. So what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and pause and try the next two on your own, and when you come back, we'll go over the answers. All right, so when you did 4 hundredths times 54 hundredths, again, this works out perfectly because we have two numbers after the decimal here and 2 here, so everything lines up nicely. Okay, when you multiplied, you should have ended up with these two zeros and then 216 at the end. You have two numbers after the decimal here and two numbers after the decimal here, meaning we had to move our decimal 4 places. Okay, so we moved it 1, 2, 3, 4 places to the left, added our decimal, and we got 0 and 216 10,000ths. Now in this one, the 2 and the 5 should have lined up, so your decimals were not going to match up. Okay, and when you multiplied, you ended up with 6,880, but because you have 1, 2, and 3 numbers after the decimal, you move your decimal 3 places to the left, and you end up with 6 and 880 thousandths. The last problem we're going to try is our word problem. Okay, again, we're going to go through, read it, pull out that important information. So if tickets to get into any West Middle School event cost 50 cents each, how much would it cost to go to 2 dances and a basketball game? In this case, it's important to know that it's 50 cents each, and that it's important to know how much would it cost to go to 2 dances and a basketball game. Now keep in mind that everything is the same, so does it matter that it's 2 dances and a basketball game? No, it just matters that you know how many events you're going to. So make sure to read this carefully. Okay, make sure to set up your problem, show your work, and then I want you to post your answer to Edmodo. Again, we'll go over it tomorrow and I'll check to make sure that your work makes sense and that you got the correct answer. If you have any questions, please be sure to write them in your workbook or post them to Edmodo so we can go over them in class tomorrow.